we're going to go ahead and go to Christian and Giorgio, who wants to talk about the problem of evil.
Hello,
how you doing, Christian?
Oh, okay. Hi.
Good. Hello.
How you doing?
So
we can hear you.
Well, thank you. So my question, I thought about it the other day, about the whole problem of evil. It's something that you hear a lot, from the atheist side of like, why does evil exist when God is good, and like assuming that they're logically incompatible, for some reason. But I haven't gotten the chance to ask like an atheist, like from their perspective, what's their problem with evil, because how I kind of see it is, in atheist worldview, evil doesn't necessarily, it doesn't really exist to begin with. But the question, I guess, is what's so bad about evil if God doesn't exist?
Well, I'll pass it to Armin real quick, but I do want to preface that what's important about the problem of evil is it's an internal critique. It's an argument that has you could be
That's
you
right,
could just be a moral anti-realist, right? You could think you could be what's called a non-cognitivist, which is someone who thinks that moral propositions or expressions can't be true or false, right? You're just saying like boo murder or yay charity or whatever. They could still run the argument because all they're going to do is take propositions that you accept and then show an unnoticed consequence with it, right? So I want to just kind of make that clear that talking about the other person's view takes you away from what the point of the problem of evil is.
Yeah, and also when you say what's so bad about evil, based on the definition, most definitions of evil, it's just it's the same thing. Like you're saying, what is so evil about evil? The way that evil is defined is something. How do you define evil? What do you mean by evil? When you ask me, what is our problem? Why do we think evil is bad? What are you talking about? Tell me what you're talking about.
Well, how evil would be defined would be causing some type of suffering or ill to somebody.
Okay.
By the means of someone with agency who has some type of malice, which goes against a transcendent law.
Transcendent law.
So, for example, I can provide an example. So, for example, if I was to smash a brick in your face, I would say that's evil because in the Christian worldview, God created you with value. You have an intrinsic moral value that can't be,
Yeah, but you're talking to an atheist. But you're talking to an atheist,
like
right?
Yeah. So we have to get agreement at least on just the terms.
You're talking to an
Christian worldview. I'm sorry. I was speaking
but you're asking.
I was asked, what does evil mean? You asked me how
you're not. Okay, but but if you're asking an atheist what is their problem with evil, then you have to talk about an evil that makes sense to them, right? You can't speak about it when you're asking an atheist what's the problem with evil, and then your definition of evil is from a Christian perspective. Then we're not on the same page. What are you even asking me?
Yeah, because we have two problems there, right? Yeah. It's like either we're talking about you're asking Armin about his evil, or we're talking about the problem of evil and your view. So there's like two potential conversations there. But it sounds like you're asking Armin what he thinks about evil, right?
How about we agree on evil or is a thing that causes a lot of misery and pain and suffering? Would that be a good definition? Would you agree with that definition?
I'm sorry, really quickly. I only say that because Armin asked me how I define evil. So being a Christian, I'm defining it how the Christian worldview would. So that's why I'm answering it that way. And I'll get to talking about.
Well, yeah, we have to divide this conversation up, right? Because there's two potential conversations happening. One, we're talking about the problem of evil, where there's some propositions that you hold to that derive some contradiction, which I'm happy to talk about. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. Or you're asking, because you've made a statement like, how can Armin have evil in the view? Now, if you're talking about that, then right, he's not going to accept some view that you have with dealing with God. So here's one way to like solve this, I think, on both sides of the conversation really easily. Would we all agree that what's evil in some sense is something that we ought not do, something that we should not do, right? Like if I sin, that's something I should not do.
Sure.
Great. So do you think that God can fail with respect to his intentions?
What does that mean?
Like God intends for
Like,
X.
are you saying God can't accomplish a purpose?
No, like God intends X, and so necessarily he'll get X.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Does God intend for evil?
Well, he gives us free will. This doesn't answer my question, by the way, but he intended that for us to have free will. It wasn't willing that we would commit evil acts, but
great. So
he doesn't want to violate our free will.
The last time, you're a sinner, right?
Last I checked.
Yeah. So the last time you sinned, could you have freely not sinned?
Sure.
Great. How about the time before that?
Yeah, sure. Maybe.
All right. How about we run that all the way back, right? For each action, you could have deliberated and you could have freely chose the right decision, right?
Go on.
Right. So there's a logically possible world where agents freely do good, right? No contradiction, right?
Yeah, because free will doesn't necessarily mean choosing good or bad. Sometimes you can choose multiple goods.
Well, in this case, the agents are just going to freely choose good, the same way that God freely chooses good, or the same way that agents in heaven freely choose good. So if that's true, and God wanted us to have free will, and he's a being that can create any logically possible world, isn't there some kind of tension where that world's available to him, but he doesn't create it, right? Because if he doesn't want evil, why would he create a world if there's a world where agents upon each deliberation could have freely chose the good? The same way that when I asked you, the last time you sinned, could you have freely done the right choice? You said yes. So it's clearly logically possible. And if God can create any logically possible world, that world's available for him to create. Yeah. So, sorry, Armin, if you want to go ahead, I'm just pointing out a tension here. Either if God intends it, and God failed.
Could I answer, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the question I'm here for, it's not being answered yet, but I'll entertain it anyways. So what's being brought up is the classic kind of, I think it's the euthyphro dilemma or whatever it's called.
I'm not giving the euthyphro.
Yeah, it is logically. I'm sorry. What is being kind of questioned is, could it be logically possible that God could create free agents who could only choose good? Perhaps.
Not only choose good, they freely choose good.
Well, to freely choose good. Well, actually, that's kind of an interesting question. And we'll get back to my question in a minute, but that's actually pretty interesting, because a good kind of thing that I was thinking about was, that kind of happened in the Garden of Eden, as it were. Is like tons of free, good choices.
You think two naked people tripped up God? Seriously? Come on.
I'm sorry?
You think two naked people popped out, scared God, and tripped him up on his way to creating the universe? Like, you really think that?
What is that? I don't understand your question.
If God intended for there not to be evil with agents freely doing good, then there wouldn't be an explanation. Like, the explanation for why it went, one way rather than the way it was supposed to is because God got tripped up by two naked people in a garden.
Well, no, because that's assuming God didn't know, right? But God intends for people to do good, but he also intends for us to have free will, because you can't honor God, you can't love God unless you have free will to begin with. But with free will comes the possibility to do things which violate God's intentions, right? So that's why, it's not really as tense as maybe some people think it is, because, free will is an important factor. Now, going back to my question about the
can I answer your question?
Things being bad. Can I restate my question just so we're on the same page?
Okay, sounds good. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so to kind of reiterate my question with why bad things kind of should be avoided or things like that in atheist worldview. it's like, yeah, why? Like, why shouldn't I hit somebody with a brick in the face? Or why should you stop me, rather? Like, why is it bad?
So first of all, we have to understand that there is no such thing as an atheistic perspective on anything other than the existence of God, right? So if I give you my answer to this, that's not the atheist perspective, that's an atheist perspective, right? Because the only thing that atheists share when it comes to their perspective is a lack of belief in the existence of God. So we're good there? So this is just a possible perspective.
Actually, I have a contention to that. Actually, well, I bring that up because in the atheist world, that is the thing. Like, the proposition there is no gods is affirmed. So when it comes to talking about morals and oughts instead of ises, those are moral claims. So as far as theism is concerned, the kind of epistemic root of morality is God. But if you take that away, then what's it being grounded upon? So that's basically my question.
You've never heard of moral naturalism, Cornell realism, Jackson realism?
There are many alternatives. Okay, some of them are good, some of them are bad, but none of them are as bad as the divine command theory, right? So there are many alternatives to the divine command theory model of moral system, right? But the one the one I go by is rule utilitarianism, which is, so if we want to define something as bad or something that we want to avoid, misery, sadness, disease, basically things that we are naturally inclined to not want, those are the things that we're trying to avoid for ourselves and the rest of society, just because that's part of our innate desires that we're born with. So if you say why, it's an irrelevant question. It's a useless question. It's almost like, if I'm enjoying
a question because
let me finish. Right? If I'm enjoying a steak, I know that's it doesn't, whether or not I know why I enjoy it is not going to change the fact that I enjoy it. If my favorite color is green and I don't know why, it's not going to change the fact that I enjoy the color green over color blue, right? So most humans, other than psychopaths, do not enjoy seeing other people happy, enjoy increasing well-being in the world, enjoy loving others, showing affection, being loved by others. This is something, we are social animals. Humans are social animals, and because they're social animals, they work in groups. They try to cooperate, and to survive as a species, they have developed certain desires to increase fairness and cooperation, right? So because we have these desires, there are ways that we could satisfy these desires more effectively, and there are ways that we can satisfy these desires less effectively. So trying to figure out standards and rules that will get us there faster, that's what we call a moral system or moral structure, right? And the best way, I think, to get there is with rule utilitarianism. And basically, we are trying. So you're saying what's good? Why is it? What's good? Good is what increases our well-being. What is bad? What is evil? That's what decreases our well-being. And asking, well, why? It's a meaningless question. It's like, why is it good? Because we're defining things that are good as things that we want, things that we as a group, as a society want. And so because of secular questions, why is it good to want the things that you want? I mean, it's because we have defined it that way. It's the most useful way of defining good and bad. Words are tools. Like there's nothing hard-coded within the fabric of the universe that this is good, this is bad. We're using these words, we're defining things in the way that has the highest utility to us, that brings us that has the most use for us. And I think defining good as things that brings us the most amount of happiness and joy for as society, not selfish and not as an individual, but for the entire society, that's a good definition that works. Does that make sense?
All right. It does make sense. I have some things to say about that, though. well, for one, I do think that it actually is a relevant question to ask why some, oughts, as it were, even if they're self-prescribed. I think it is an important question to ask, because just to say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's just like picking my favorite flavor of ice cream. Well, it's not quite the same thing, because that's like a foundational tenet of your, like worldview or your epistemology, right? So you don't want to be ad hoc and just say, oh, well, we don't have to answer that question, right? So, we don't have to do that.
The difference,
and secondly,
I mean, the difference.
I'm sorry, if I could finish really quickly.
Yep.
In the second part of what you said, I follow what you're saying, but this, the idea of like we should aim to increase people's well-being and reduce suffering, it kind of presupposes that we have value that should be upheld, and like our opinions matter to begin with. It's like, why? That's the point of my question. Like, why should well-being be aspired towards to begin with?
So this is to me, this is like really easy in the sense of like, I don't hold like a realist view at all, but like, what do you care about going to hell and going to heaven?
I prefer not to go to hell, but sure.
Yeah. Why do you prefer not to go to hell? Does it not necessarily affect your well-being? It seems like that's first.
I prefer not to go to hell because I enjoy the presence of God over not being in the presence of God. So.
And that affects your well-being. Yeah, right. So it just seems like there's something primary or more fundamental to that.
That's me following.
But that has to do with your phenomenal.
I'm sorry, but that's me following my transcendent purpose, right? That's not me.
Okay,
saying,
why ought anybody follow that purpose, right? You don't have any different issue, or you don't have. It's not like you've escaped the issue. Under your view, it's going to be stance dependent, the same way that the anti-realist is. It's going to bottom out at the desires or commands of God, right? And so, like if I just ask this question, why ought I obey those commands? And you just say, well, God's really powerful. He's the creator. You're just going to give me descriptive claims. At no which could you infer a normative claim, right? An ought claim that I should obey God. And so it doesn't seem like you've absolved kind of the is-ought or naturalistic fallacy at all, really, just by appealing to God or his nature or things like that. It seems like the same problem will rise. And more so, it's like subjectivism on steroids, right? It's like, who has the biggest stick? Like, who's the bigger mob boss with the most push, right? That's the view, the metaethical view it seems that you have. But I think we can out that really what you actually care about is your well-being.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up. I haven't even brought that up yet. So, I'll be happy to address it though. But, and talking about why should I follow God? Thankfully God has the, he loves, in the Christian worldview, of course, because that's, what I'm speaking from. He honors our free will. So we don't have to do anything that he wants us to do, but it's in the Christian worldview. It's because that's what we're designed to do. That's what fulfills us. And it, fills a God-shaped hole in our heart. So it's not quite the same as self-ascribing some type of
but
because I'm
you would still be giving
category.
But if I asked you, why ought I obey God's commands? You're going to give me descriptive things like, well, he's the creator. He's really powerful. He is loving, right? You're going to give me is statements about God or descriptive statements about God, right?
No, because I just gave prescriptive statements. I said that.
But I'm going to ask you, why should I prescribe to those statements?
His presence fills a hole in your heart.
No, but that's not prescriptive. You're giving a descriptive statement. If you just give me a prescriptive statement, I'm going to ask you, why ought I care about that prescription, right? Like, I'm pointing out, like, at whatever level you want to take this on, the amount of sentences you give me about God's attributes will never amount to some normative obligation that I have, right? Like, that's just not going to follow from the premises, no matter how you construct the argument.
I'm failing to understand your point, and I'm not trying to be dense.
I'm just saying, like, your concern that you have with, like, why ought, but why should we care about well-being? Why this? Those kind of ought concerns, those, like, meta kind of normative concerns are on your view as well. You also have that view. Your view entails subjectivism. Yeah.
Well, I'd be hard pressed to say it fails, but with the reason why I think the place where it's different between us is I'm appealing to a transcendent category that's necessary, whereas you're just appealing to yourself, right?
No, there are necessary propositions that are true. Torturing babies for fun is wrong, is always true. Some moral realists take that to be the case. What are you talking about? Moral naturalism. Have you ever heard of it? I mean, like that's absurd to think that you have this monopoly. I mean, I don't know how much meta-ethical literature you've read, but like that's just not like, I'm not a realist, but like it's just totally unfair to those moral realists who are atheists, right? Michael Humer or these types of people, right? Like I just don't understand why we would monopolize that on the theist side when it turns out like yours is like a mafioso type of good.
The point is that no matter how many times you say, can I just say something about what Mike is saying? Because no matter, you keep saying it's transcendent or whatever, but these are still is statements. You're saying that we can't get from is to ought, but I mean, if that's true with you as well. Like you can't just be like, well, my is statements are special. That's what you're doing, but there still is statements.
I'm asking you, what's your ought? And I'm trying to probe it.
Okay. Can I answer that? I didn't even say an ought. Like I stayed within, like I have a moral system within the is world. You keep asking me, well, why should we? Why? I didn't say we should do anything. So we could stay within is and have a moral system, and that's easy. Given that we want well-being, these are the things that will get us there. I didn't say should. I didn't say ought. Okay, we have desires. One of those desires is to increase our well-being. What is the best? So given that, what is the best way to get there? So within the is world, without going to the making that bridge to the ought world, I have a moral system. I'm trying to increase well-being. Why? Because we want to. I didn't say we should. We just want to. Never say ought to, never said should.
A lot of people do this too. They do, like, this is what a lot of people in moral naturalism do, right? It's not like unfamiliar.
Well, it's not unfamiliar to me, but just saying because we want to. I personally have a problem with that, just because it just seems very baseless, And I'm not saying you're baseless, but it seems very kind of.
It does seem
arbitrary.
It does seem baseless. Right? It does seem baseless when you compare it to liking ice cream. Okay, the difference between wanting well-being and liking a certain favor of ice cream is that it's way more closer to universal. It's not universal, but it's closer to universal. And it's more innate. Like we are not born with liking chocolate over vanilla, right? But we are a species. We're a social animal. This is innate within our nature. That's what we want. We are social animals. We want to work in tribes. We want to take after our others, not just ourselves. We enjoy seeing other people happy. Other people's misery makes us sad. So that's the difference between that. So it is more significant than just flavors of ice cream.
And I want you to give your response.
Thanks for answering that. Thank you.
Yeah, Christian, did you want to have a response before you go? I was going to move it. I enjoyed the conversation and apologize if when you brought problem of evil and started talking about that, I thought that's more so where you were going. You made your clarification on there, so apologies that if I missed you on that. But if you wanted to kind of say anything before you go, you feel free.
Yeah, I mean, how would I say? I can understand the answer. I personally disagree with it, but I can understand the logic. I don't really have anything else to say about it, but
well, no, that's
thank you for giving an answer, and thank you for not talking down to me.
No. Yeah, of course.
For believing in God, but at least you don't show it.
No, you're good. You're cool, man. It's all good. We want to make, even if anyone gets frustrated, it's like, it's good to have these conversations.
Yeah, I'm not mad at you. I don't even know you, so.
No, of course. Yeah.
Well,
take care, bud.
And thank you for being curious in what we think. Thank you for trying. Thank you for being open to hearing other people's opinions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for answering.